Welcome back to the Jake Asman Show on the Sports Map Radio Network.
Presented by Rocket Mortgage. Need a mortgage that fits your life? Rocket can.
Live from the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios, here's Jake Asman.
Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. You can get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service at O'Reilly Auto Parts. O'Reilly Auto Parts, better prices every day. So Matt Rhule, the head football coach of the Carolina Panthers, is going into his second year. And Matt Rhule had a decision to make this offseason. What was he going to do at the quarterback position? They tried to get Deshaun Watson for obvious reasons that fell apart. They looked around and said, you know what? If we're not going to be able to get Matt Stafford because the price is too steep, let's take a flyer on Sam Darnold. And I had no issue with doing just that. It only costs a second and a fourth next year, a sixth this year, whatever. No issue if you're the Carolina Panthers going out there and taking the chance on a guy in Sam Darnold who's still just 23 years old. And if you watch Sam Darnold, you see the flashes. Obviously, the situation with the Jets prevented Sam, I believe, from us truly finding out what he is. But the Carolina Panthers still had the 8th pick. And if you've heard the show, I advocated for them to go out there and still draft the quarterback. Still get a guy at 8 if there's one you like that's in there. Because you can never have enough competition at that position when you have unknowns. You know, this isn't the Packers drafting Jordan Love when they have Aaron Rodgers. Right? Sam Darnold's an unproven commodity. You didn't have to pick up his 5th-year option. If you drafted a quarterback and that guy ends up playing over Darnold, all right, yeah, you gave up a second and a fourth, but you know what? That's not going to cripple your franchise. Or maybe you trade Sam Darnold if he plays okay. But to not draft the quarterback, I think, is a major risk when there's one in Justin Fields that's sitting there. Now, if it's Trey Lance, who's a project, or if it's Mac Jones, I get it. But, man, wouldn't Justin Fields make some sense for Carolina as an insurance policy just in case Sam Darnold's not your guy? Just in case we find out that Sam Darnold is, maybe not as bad as he was this past year with the Jets, but he's not going to be as good as you thought he was. Wouldn't it have made sense to take a chance on Justin Fields? You're not winning anything of significance this year anyway if you're Carolina. It's still another rebuild year. I mean, maybe if Sam's really good, you could be a wild card team. But you're not winning that division when Tampa's in it. So you really want to be all in on Sam? All right. You better be right, though. So Matt Rhule was on the Zach Gelb show last night on CBS Sports Radio. My buddy Zach asked Matt Rhule why they chose to pass on drafting Justin Fields.
I think he's an unbelievable quarterback. I think he's going to have a ton of success. But I think we made a decision that we were gonna have Sam be our quarterback. And I look at it real simply. Had we drafted a quarterback, we would have a quarterback. By taking another position player, we had Sam plus now JC. So to me, it was 2 for 1. It's an opportunity to continue to build the team while also having a quarterback in Sam that we believe can do it. So that does not mean that I don't believe that Justin or Mac or any of those other quarterbacks aren't going to be franchise quarterbacks. I think they're really special, but this was a chance for us to get a corner and also, move into the future with Sam.
I like the confidence in Sam Darnold. I'm a Sam Darnold fan. I just think it's a real risk to bank on Sam being your guy. And Matt Rhule also said in that interview, well, Sam Darnold is still just 23. He's turning 24. He's still so young. We can't define a player on what he is if he's only played in, so few games and he's still that young. I get all that. And you're talking to someone, Matt, that is a big Sam Darnold fan. I just think there's a huge risk in sticking with Sam. Like, if you want to trade for Sam, I was all for that. But when they made the deal, I talked about that being, as like an insurance because they didn't think any of these quarterbacks were going to be there for them at pick 8. I mean, remember the talk during the draft process? We might have 4 quarterbacks go 1, 2, 3, 4. So if Justin Fields was going to get picked, I didn't think he'd be there at number 8. So that's why I was all in on the Darnold move. But the fact that he was there, you had the board play out the way it did, and you chose to go corner over taking a chance on Fields, I just think is a risk. I think it's a risk because if Sam is not your guy, then you're kind of stuck. What are you doing at quarterback? Oh, well, they could just go and trade for Deshaun Watson. Really? I mean, they did just give away a second and a fourth next year. They're going to give away their one next year and the year. I mean, then you're kind of in a tough spot. And I don't think Sam's going to be bad enough where you're picking in the top 5 next year. But I just don't know how good Carolina is going to be. I would have went quarterback. And this is not just the Panthers, though, by the way. I would have went quarterback from the Broncos at 9. Oh, but Jake, they're going to get Aaron Rodgers. Really? We know that? I stand corrected if Denver ends up with Aaron Rodgers. But I've been outspoken that I don't think Rodgers is getting dealt this year. I think he ends up showing back up to Green Bay, and it's the last dance Packer version where Rodgers plays out the stretch this final year in Green Bay. Denver at pick 9 chose to go corner as well. Denver at pick 9 could have had Justin Fields, could have had Mac Jones, could have brought in more competition at that position. Teddy Bridgewater's not your answer. Drew Lock's not your answer. I come from the philosophy of just keep going quarterback until you actually find a quarterback. Because you never know. These guys come from nowhere. But I just think it's risky when you're that set on Sam Darnold. I mean, the reality is as bad as Sam, or as bad as the Jets were this past year, Sam also was bad. And an issue you have with Sam is his decision-making at times could be awful. There's too many boneheaded interceptions that were taking place in his 3rd year. And what concerns me about Darnold, if I'm going to look at it fairly here, is, rookie year played well at the end. 2nd year had the mono, but came back. The Jets had a winning record with him. Last year, he regressed. How do you explain that? Like, it's not like Sam. If Sam had his 2nd year, statistically, in his 3rd year, the Jets win more than 2 games, and they're not taking Zach Wilson. So, I just think there's a lot of risk there. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just going to be dead wrong. Sam's going to go in. He's going to light it up. And then I'll say, you know what, Matt Rhule, you're a smart guy. You're smarter than I am. But, Ron, I'll ask you this. If you're the Panthers, and you could have a quarterback room with Darnold and Justin Fields, wouldn't that set you up long-term for success, that if Darnold doesn't work out, at least you have a fallback option?
Yeah, but I think you run the risk of putting added pressure on Darnold that he has to perform because his replacement is sitting there in the wings. Or, you drafted.
But what has Sam Darnold done to earn we just need to hand him the job?
Well, the thing I'm looking at is what has he not done, because he's never been given a fair shake.
That's fair.
The Jets did him no favors. The Jets right now have already rolled out the royal red carpet, and for Zach Wilson, and it's amazing. The what they did in the draft, and he literally hasn't even put the uniform on yet, and he already has more weapons, more protection than Sam Darnold got. 3 years under the Jets? So I think what you need to do in the Panthers, I think the Panthers made a right decision in this. Roll out with Sam this season. Give him. He has one of the best weapons in the NFL, as long as that guy can stay on the field.
Robbie Anderson?
Yes. No, I'm going Christian McCaffrey on this one. If Sam Darnold can't produce or show like he's producing, you're going to get a top 10 pick again this coming offseason. I'm not sure if there's going to be a good quarterback available, but
that's the thing.
There's bound to be one.
There could be some quarterbacks that emerge next year, but man, you had one in Justin Fields that was sitting right there. Maybe they just don't like Fields. I don't know. Maybe Matt Rule's lying through his teeth, but I would have been more aggressive in just bringing in competition. But we shall see. I am happy that Sam Darnold is getting a chance to be the guy. I will be rooting for him to do well.
Over 2.5 million airline passengers fly